Dear teachers, hi. And so first of all, can you tell me if you can see the screen well? Can you type in the chat if you can see the screen well? Yes or no? Okay, good. Just a second. Let me see. Okay, yeah, okay, thank you so much. Great. So as you can see from the title slide, I'm going to talk about preparation for IELTS and provide you with some hopefully useful ideas that you can implement in your classes. But before we start, could you tell me, oh, thank you very much, Irina. Could you please type in the chat if you have experience of teaching exam classes yourselves? All right. Okay, great. And another thing could, oh no, right. So I see lots of teachers who replied yes or not yet. So maybe after, with some time, you will feel more confident and you will do this kind of class. Now, could you please type if you have experience of teaching IELTS or preparing students for IELTS? Right, so different answers, yes and no. All right. Again, then, yeah, for those who replied no, hope that today's ideas might be useful and helpful. Well, I guess that you would agree with me if I say that reading and writing are two most complicated sections. And mainly this is due to the fact that we don't know the answers in advance, and these could the candidates can be asked a variety of quite unexpected questions, and there can be any type of writing task that they need to do during their test. So let's see what we are going to talk about. So first, I'd like to give general overview of the exam classes and in what ways they're basically different from general language classes. Then we will move on to the format of the speaking section. We will refresh it, and maybe those who do not teach IELTS class will learn something about the format itself. Then we will briefly look at the assessment criteria for speaking. Then I'll dwell on some useful strategies that you can use in your exam classes and you can use yourselves as the candidates or test takers. Then we will move on to the format of the writing section, and again, some useful strategies that can be implemented for developing like these writing strategies and skills. All right. Talking about the exam classes and how different they are from general language classes. So do you have any ideas? If so, could you please type something in the chat from your experience? Basically, are they that much different or no? And if they are different, so what do you see as the difference? Okay. Right, waiting for your answers, more ideas. Thank you. I see there. Yeah, Maria, exactly. They're more focused on strategies. True. Yes, strategy to complete the task. Thank you. Right. Yeah, learning some tricks. Thank you, Tori. Okay. Any other ideas? Prompts on how to do the exam tasks. True. True, Irina. Phrasal verbs a lot. Well, yes, practicing some certain kind of language. Yeah, so Nadia has given a very interesting answer that's kind of a mixture of general English plus strategies. No feedback on your answers. Well, that depends on the teacher. You are supposed to receive feedback on the tasks. Doing lots of tests, time limits. Okay, good. So talking about the features of exam classes, yeah, you're right that basically there is no much difference from general language classes, but I would say that one striking difference is that a high level of students' motivation. So they are really motivated and they are interested in doing well. And if you have a class of motivated learners, it will be easier for you to teach and to develop certain strategy, because such students tend to be more responsive to what you say, and they are willing to do their homework, and they will even require more homework from you, and and they will be willing to do even some extra tasks. All right. Another thing is that's a definite advantage of exam classes is that there is one shared goal for the learners, and there is this group energy, or I would say synergy, and they tend to be supportive, and there is the spirit of collaboration, as they clearly see their aim. And again, that's another advantage is that there is a certain aim that students need to achieve, and it is usually measured. I mean, when the teacher gives the feedback and especially evaluates their written and spoken answers, so in such a way, it's easier to keep the students motivated. Right. Yeah, many of you have mentioned that we do lots of exam tasks, and there could be yeah, another important things. Yeah, we do lots of tasks, but many of these tasks resemble sort of real life situations. For example, if we talk about IELTS general module, where students need to write letters, that is something that they can transfer to their real life. And in such a way, we as teachers can help to develop and reinforce this positive attitude towards exam classes, right? Showing that the skills that students develop and the material, the language material that they learn can be then transferred to their real life. And in such a way, we also upgrade the commands of language. And talking about doing lots of exam classes, we should mention such a phenomenon as washback. Unfortunately, sometimes it can be negative. That is when we when the classes resemble the exam itself, and in such a way we concentrate only on doing the task and talking about the we develop the strategy, and then the teaching exam class has negative effect on the learning process itself. So yeah, sure, that's an exam class, but we should not forget about this potentially negative effects, and still remember that that's the language class anyway. And though upgrading the language level is not the main purpose of the exam class, still we need to focus on that as well, and think of how the learners can use the skills that they have developed during the exam course, how they can use it in their real life. Right. Okay, and let's see what else. Yeah, and again, some of you have mentioned this limitation time. That's true. We are limited. The course is not that long, and sometimes there is not enough time to practice all the tasks, all the materials in class. That's why something should be left for self-study, for homework, and then again, getting back to the first point, motivation. So that is something that can help us here and explain to students, to our learners, that they need to do lots of self-study work and the homework. All right, now let's move on to the speaking format of the speaking test in IELTS. All right, and here there are 8 questions, and let's do a bit of a quiz. So could you please type in the chat? Just first take some time, look through these statements concerning the format and decide if they're true or false. Then we go question by question and discuss each. First, take a minute. Look through the statements and decide if they're true or false. All right. Okay, can I ask you to stop texting the answers because there will be a bit of a mess. We will go question by question. Right. Okay, while you're thinking, there is a very interesting comment from David, who wrote that limitation time refers to writing the 2 essays. That is a challenge for the students. Yeah, that's true. That also refers to mock tests. Unfortunately, if we talk about IELTS, we are not able to do all mock tests, like whole mock tests during the class. Yeah, and we don't have enough time to practice all the tasks. Yeah, true. All right. Okay. Good. Okay. I see that you are still eager to write their answers. So let's see. So the first one, there are 3 parts in the speaking test: true or false? Okay. Right. Exactly. 0. 3 of them. Then let's move on. Number 2, the speaking test lasts for 20 minutes. Okay, you are typing false. Could you please time the correct timing for that? Okay, lots of experienced test takers here. Yes, thank you. Yes, right. Thank you, Tori. Exactly. From 11 to 14 minutes. May take up to 15, but no more than that. Thank you. Good. 3. There are 2 candidates who take the speaking test. So you have a speaking partner. Right. Exactly. That's false. There is only one. You're one-to-one with the examiner. Let's move on. As for the format, part 1 is an oral interview. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and the examiner asks the questions which are familiar to the candidates and refer to some situations connected with the test taker. Good. Number 5, in part 2, the examiner will give you a task to talk about. Yeah, thank you, Tori. Personal questions in part 1, exactly. True. Yeah, true. Let's move on. The candidate has a choice of task, meaning that there are several and you can... right, exactly. Unfortunately, we can't choose the task, but we can choose what to talk about. And this is also really, really helpful. Number 7, as for the format of part 3, it's a discussion in which the examiners also give their arguments. Oh, that's a tricky one. Let's see. Well, this is false because that is a discussion. The examiner can conduct a freer discussion. He doesn't have such a strict script here, but this is not a 2-way discussion. So the examiner will ask the questions and the test taker will reply. Okay, and the final responses in part 3 should be long and extended. Well, this is true. Yeah, they should be long and extended by providing arguments, examples, exploring the question and looking at it at different aspects. All right, let's move on to another important thing before we move on to strategies that's useful for you as teachers. That's assessment criteria. All right, so there are 4 assessment criteria. And so we can talk about grammatical range and accuracy, pronunciation, fluency and coherence, and lexical resource. Why is it important for you as teachers to have the information and to know like what the criteria are? Because you need to provide the feedback on students' performance or learners' performance, yes, to assess properly, exactly, Tori. And you can, basing on these criteria, you can create certain checklists for your students so that they are able to evaluate their answers themselves and basically to raise students' learners' awareness concerning what was done well, what should be improved, and so that they realize what action points are. All right. Now, let's see if you understand basically what these criteria mean. I'm going to show in the slides the description of the criteria, and I will ask you to type in the chat what they are. All right. So have a look at the name. So we can talk about grammar, pronunciation, fluency and coherence, and lexical resource, or lexis basically. Okay. Now I'm going to show the first criterion. So have a look at this. So the criterion checks if you can speak at length without noticeable effort, you can speak without hesitation, repetition, or self-correction. You can use linkers, and the ideas are developed coherently and logically. All right. Yes, exactly. That's fluency and coherence. That's quite a tricky criterion because many students think that learners think that's it's about speaking quickly. Well, no, that's about speaking naturally, neither too slowly nor too quickly. And the test taker should be able to speak at length. That's important, at ease, without making noticeable effort. Ideally without hesitation, self-correction, repetition, and using linkers. That is what we as teachers should pay attention to and draw students' attention to. All right, let's move on. The next criterion, a wide vocabulary resource to discuss a variety of topics, using it with flexibility, using some idiomatic language, and paraphrasing successfully. Okay, right. Well, basically grammar and lexis these are two separate criteria. So yeah, that's lexical resource. And again, something that if your students like wonder what is paid attention to during the exam, you can say that like something that they may improve, that's a wide range, less common language, and paraphrasing successfully. Good. Okay, let's move on. Okay. Whether you can produce simple structures, a mix of simple and complex, or complex structures, and error-free sentences. All right. Yeah, definitely. That's grammatical range and accuracy. So here it's important to produce, complex structures if the test takers aim at higher band. Even at band 6, they should already start using complex structures. Sure, with some mistakes are allowed, so to say, but however, there should be at least an attempt of complex grammar structures. Right. The previous slide, yeah, definitely. Just a second. I'll try to get back. That's the previous slides concerning lexical resource. Okay. And now I'm moving on to the, and the last criterion. That should be super easy. Right, exactly. Of course, pronunciation. Yeah, here there can be a question that your students may ask, well, what if I have my accent? So will I be downgraded? I'm not a native speaker. No, you will not be, or a test taker will not be downgraded just because of the accent. The main thing is that the accent should not have effect on intelligibility, meaning that you should be understood throughout your response. That's the main thing. Of course, if the test takers are able to use the intonation, to vary the intonation features, and to use the logical stress, or to emphasize the words using stress, and use the features of connected speech, sure, it will only contribute to high score. However, the accent itself does not affect the score. The main thing that you should be clearly understood or intelligible, let's say. All right, good. So as I have mentioned, you can make use of these criteria to create checklists in the form of questions, for example, to your students, like, was I clearly understood? Did I use a variety of structures? Did I speak at length? Did I produce long sentences? So that's a very useful tool on how to raise your students' awareness and encourage noticing things. Right. Okay, let's talk about some useful strategies in different parts of the speaking test. So we remember that speaking part 1, that's an interview during which the examiner asks some questions on familiar, some personal questions like, tell me about your hometown, or do you live in a flat or a house? There can be some less, so to say, less common questions talking about the importance of trees in your culture or something. But anyway, that will be related to, again, situations that will be the speakers, the test takers' country, let's say. So how can we help our learners with dealing with part 1? First of all, make sure that you and your students understand the formats of the speaking test, right? And they understand what they are expected to face. Then again, make sure that while giving the answers, as they should not be very long, that students stay on topic and they give relevant answers. Yeah, encourage students to avoid giving very short answers, like something like yes, no, or one sentence answer. Another very important thing and useful thing is encouraging the learners to paraphrase the examiner's questions. Why? Just in order to sound more natural. Because let's imagine the situation, the examiner asks a question like, okay, what's your favorite book? My favorite book is Pride and Prejudice. Or have you ever been? No, I have never been. So that's something that is called parroting the examiner's question, and that doesn't sound quite natural. And what's more, it doesn't allow the candidate to demonstrate the range of vocabulary and grammar. All right. Another thing is that's especially important for this part. That's the use of fluency markers and linkers. So we also need to teach our students this very, very helpful vocabulary. Again, in order to sound more natural, and in order to make our response and student learners' response more logically connected. A good example of paraphrasing. Oh, thank you. That's a very good question. Well, depends. You don't need to repeat the question. Okay, for example, if the examiner asks you, for example, do you like watching TV? I can say, if I don't paraphrase, I can say, well, I like watching TV, or I don't like watching TV. I will repeat the same, let's say. But what can I say instead? I can say, for example, or I'm a huge fan of watching TV, or let's say, well, to be honest, I'm afraid I'm not that keen on watching TV. In such a way, I have paraphrased the word like. That's the simplest example I can come up with, right? Yeah. So why I don't mind. So do you like watching TV? Well, I don't mind it. Or do you like playing football? Well, I don't mind it, but yeah, I can find some more exciting activities to do in my free time. Great. Yeah, and of course, as I have mentioned, it's a good idea to create a checklist to evaluate their answers. And if students work in pairs, so they can evaluate their partner's answer and they can notice a lot of things. All right, good. Let's move on. Something else. Oh, yeah. Some repair strategies that we can teach our students, that is like asking the examiner to repeat or paraphrase the question. Well, generally, there is a common belief that it's not a good idea for the test taker to ask the examiner to paraphrase in part 1, because the language is quite simple. I mean, the questions tend to be quite simple. So here in part 1, like we as test takers are allowed to ask the examiner to repeat. Yeah, can you repeat, please? Or can you say that again? Or something. So, but yeah, we need to teach our learners these repair strategies if they fail to catch the question. yeah, paraphrasing the words, yeah, so that they avoid parroting the examiner. Using the language to buy some thinking time. This is also some kind of repair strategy. When we are puzzled by the question, for example, is there a tree that's important for your country? Yeah, and instead of keeping silent, we can use something like, that has never crossed my mind, or, oh, that's an interesting question, let's see. Yeah, so you can also teach your students some nice phrases which will already show the range of language. Yeah, and definitely we can also teach our learners how to extend the answers. This can be done in several ways. That's a typical problem. The learner may say, well, I don't know what to say, or I have no ideas what to say more. So you can give the reasons. For example, I don't like watching TV. I can explain why. We can give examples. Okay, if I like watching TV, I can give an example of a TV program. I can compare the past and the present. For example, the question can be, do you like cooking? Well, but to be honest, I don't cook now a lot because I have such a hectic life and I prefer takeaway food. However, when I was a child or in my childhood, I used to help my mom and I would always cook pasta or salads or something, right? So that can be an idea how to extend your answer, and again, to demonstrate the range of vocabulary and grammar. All right. Yeah, and also we can talk hypothetically, and this is another way to how to extend your answer. For example, do you read a lot? Well, unfortunately, no, because I don't have enough time. However, if I did, I would blah blah blah. Okay. There is a question. May the examiner give her full answers if the test taker asks? Well, no, we are not as test takers. We are not supposed to ask the examiner anything. No, that's not a discussion, definitely. And again, that's an exam. That's not a chat, a friendly chat or conversation or something. We are here. These are the rules of the game. We are there to take an exam. Again, it's not a chat with the examiner, and no, please ask your learners not to do that. Definitely, right? Okay. Now, speaking part 2, this long term. So what's important there in terms of teaching our students? First of all, the crucial thing is doing timed practice, because the learners will not see the timer during the exam, so they need to develop the feeling of this 2 minutes and 1 minute for preparation. So doing time practice is of utmost importance for parts 2. Next thing, teaching how to take notes effectively, because you're encourage your learners to use this 1 minute to take notes and come up with some ideas. All right, then it's a good idea to use these pointing phrases, such as I'm going to talk about, moving on to, the reason why the event is so memorable, because it gives the shape and the structure to the response, and in such a way the test takers are likely to get a higher score if they use it and they produce a well-structured response. Okay, let's see what else. Yeah, again, remind your learners that they are supposed to cover all the prompts and they need to provide the details on the cue card. That's also important, right? And yeah, vocabulary. Okay, here that's a controversial point, I would say, because very often your learners may ask you to provide them with the list of sophisticated vocabulary or advanced vocabulary in order to impress the examiner. Okay, I will say this nice word and the examiner will be impressed and he will give me band 9. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. And why? Because the main thing with sophisticated and complicated vocabulary is to use it naturally, with flexibility, and appropriately and consistently. and the examiners can detect that this is just memorized language once it is used inappropriately or inconsistently. So, and instead, it's a good idea to, while just during your lessons, you can monitor and you can notice what language learners lack, and you can teach this language. Like if we are talking about some important words, some keywords, right, that can really enlarge their vocabulary considerably, right? Okay, good. Moving on to speaking part 3. So hopefully you remember that here we move on to some more abstract questions, and part 3 is related in terms of topic with part 2. And here it's a good idea to practice discussing some complicated and abstract questions. For example, what is beauty? Which landscape is considered to be beautiful in your country, let's say. Yeah, that's hard to discuss even in your first language. However, these are the types of the questions that your learners may come across in the exam. So just having some discussions on concerning abstract issues, for example, or how the life is going to change in 20 years time, let's say. Will robots replace humans? Right. Then, as I have previously mentioned, it's a good idea if you notice which vocabulary your students lack. Yeah, you can encourage them to look these words up in a dictionary, and they can learn and they like incorporate and make them active parts of the vocabulary. Okay. Yeah, it's a good idea if you can encourage the learners to use less common idiomatic language, more complex grammar and linkers, and you can explain that this is how they can upgrade their score, how they can get a higher score, right? Okay, for example, how can this be done? Again, checklists can be used so that they notice what kind of language they use. If they work in pairs, the partner can provide the feedback. Oh, the grammar was like a way too simple, and you need to use, like, for example, here you could have used second conditional, and here you could have used present perfect, let's say, or passive or something. Okay. Yeah, and another thing, since in part 3 we are expected to give longer and more extended answers, it's a good idea to teach the learners the language of evaluating, hypothesizing, stating opinions, not just that simple "I think," but there are many other different ways. We can say, from my perspective, or my take on that is that, right? We need to teach our students, our learners, how to compare and contrast different time periods, let's say the past and the present, short-term, long-term, future, and so on and so on. Because again, when we talk about part 3, it's about exploring the answer from different aspects, talking about advantages and disadvantages, and talking about different age groups, different time periods, and so on. All right. Okay, so before we move on to writing, are there any questions concerning the speaking section? Something that you would like to ask me now? Doesn't it look too bookish to use a lot of cliches? Could be, yes, Irina, it may. Again, but if the test taker uses them naturally, with flexibility, appropriately, then it will sound all right. Yeah, maybe, of course, you don't need to, to stuff your response with this like cliches, but yeah, idiomatic language definitely is an advantage. How can we improve? Okay, accuracy. Oh, that's a very good question. So what can be done is that learners can record their answers, for example, and they can listen and analyze. Very often learners are able to detect their own mistakes, to spot their own mistakes. So maybe recording their own answers is a good idea, or just preparing even in advance, or just speaking. Yeah, and then like, or just making the written response and analyzing from the point of view of grammar. Okay, talking about quotes and proverbs, again, see if they are used appropriately. Okay, don't overuse because it may sound like a memorized answer. Be careful with that. In this case, you can be punished, but see if they're used appropriately. Maybe one or two, well, could be, yeah. For me, it would be useful to hear 2-3 books that you use in teaching. Well, to be honest, in our center, we use our own course book, and lots of materials were created by our teachers. So like hard to say now. We are using our own materials, which were designed by the teachers of our center. The best way to teach IELTS class, would you focus on the practice paper or language features? Well, Denise, since we are short of time, definitely it's a good idea to look at the probably the exam structure itself, taking it as, I would say, skeleton, and talking about the language features. Again, depends on how much time you have, how many lessons. And I would say that it's a good idea to, in terms of language, it's a good idea to focus on some emergent language features. So if you notice that all the students have problem with second conditional, let's say, or the correct use of the passive or something, you can briefly work on this in class and cite it as homework or self-study work, right? You can address this language issue, but I would say I would not incorporate it in the syllabus. I would leave it as just emergent language. Right, as native, the idioms are complex forms or benefits. Thank you, David. Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely, right. Some learners ask to give them some answer patterns to hack the exam. Okay, yes, this could be like, you can use, you can teach them these prefabricated chunks and blocks, like it has never crossed my mind, or I have never thought about that. Yeah, sure. But again, see if they are able to use this correctly and accurately. Yeah, this can help. Again, some kind of pre-prepared stuff. Yeah, sure. Why not? Some patterns. For example, I can say, it's interesting, but I can teach my learners the pattern like, I find it interesting, or it makes me feel blah, blah, blah. Yeah, sure. You can teach them such patterns. Right, it's hard to speak naturally under the exam conditions. Yeah, sure, Svetlana, absolutely agree with you. But practice makes it perfect. The more you practice, the easier it is finally to speak during the exam and cope with the stress. Great. Yeah, thank you, Nadia. Yeah. So thinking about the patterns, thinking about how to start, continue, and finish the answer on every topic. Yeah, patterns are fine. For example, I could start off by saying that, moving on to the something and something, and the reason why something and something. Yeah, makes sense, absolutely. Okay, good. Let's move on to writing and another quiz concerning the format. Here you see some figures which are connected with the format of the writing section. Can you type in the chat what they stand for? What they, yeah. And I'll give you a little hint. We'll have 2 ideas or 2 aspects of the written test. Okay. So it's all connected with the format of the writing section. All right. Yeah, I see some of the answers. Good. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yes, lots of interest, lots of great ideas. Okay. I have so many experienced people here. Okay. Yeah, nice. Okay, let's see. So you're absolutely right. There are 2 writing tasks, absolutely. And there are 2 modules, general training and academic. Yeah, and so the first task will be different. For the general training, that's a letter. For the academic module, that's a report, and essay will be similar. Good. Yeah, 20 minutes is the recommended time to spend on writing task 1. But okay, guys, can I spend more than 20 minutes on writing task 1? If I want to, can I spend 25 minutes? Yeah, exactly. So just it's up to us. That's recommended thing. 40 minutes, that's recommended time to spend on writing task 2. Yeah, sure, Tori, no time for the essay then. Yeah, then we have to make our choice here. Good. And 60 minutes as the overall time. A quick question, why do you think 40 minutes is recommended to spend on writing task 2, sorry? Why are we supposed? Twice as long as task 1. Yeah, okay, and let's have a look. Yes, okay, that is one reason. Productive. Essay is more, yeah, write it down, absolutely. Essay is more important. Yeah, it's more complicated, but yeah, costs more, exactly. It will bring you twice as many points as writing task 1. Right, so that's why at the same time, guys, be very careful. We should not ignore writing part task 1. It doesn't mean that we should concentrate only on writing task 2. No, we need to write both tasks. Exactly. Okay, yeah, thank you, David has a nice recommendation, is writing task 2 first, then writing task 1. Yeah, makes sense if you are like class confident, but again, we should not forget, we should still leave some time on writing task 1. Okay, good, thank you. So let's have a look at the suggested, so to say, cycle, which we as teachers can use to address this task. So first of all, it's a good idea to start with analyzing the task. And there we need to identify the keywords and the key features which should be discussed. If we talk about the essay, we need to understand the type of the essay. We need to find the task, what we exactly need to do. Because if we don't address some parts of the task, unfortunately, we can be punished in terms of losing the points. So first things, that's analyzing task analysis. So just please teach your learners to spend 2-3 minutes, or at least 1 minute, yeah, to look at the task and yeah, identify all the keywords. Next, planning, that's super important. First of all, that's in terms of ideas. It's a good idea to brainstorm ideas, even more than you need, and then we can select what's appropriate, what's not. Once you have the ideas, you can think about the structure, how many paragraphs to write, what to write in each paragraph, and the learners can already start like producing some phrases, maybe the beginning of the paragraph, maybe they can write already some topic sentences. And then it's a good idea to think about lexis and grammar, because again, we should demonstrate the range of both. And for example, if we are talking about writing task 1, and this is a line graph which shows the changes over a certain period of time, it's important to incorporate the language of comparison, of change, and make sure that it is varied. For example, not to use increase and decrease all the time, but we can say grew, there was a steady growth or decline, or the number stabilized or remained unchanged, plateaued, and so on. Yeah, grammar is also important, because again, remember that we need to use complex structures. Like see if you can use again passive, or if we can use complex sentences, so we avoid writing very simple sentences. If the linkers are used appropriately, they are not repeated, and so on. Well, then we basically write the answer. And at this moment, though we are limited in time, and David has previously mentioned that we don't have time to write both writing tasks in class very often, still we need to do that. And it is important for us to plan and include in the syllabus timed practice. Of course, encourage your students your learners to do lots of writing tasks at home. And please make sure that you include timed writing practice in the class, so that the students feel this pressure. So they become more organized and they see how things work, basically. Okay. Watching this session again, I don't know, to be honest. Just a second. Our moderators will get back to you concerning if we, yes, will we be able to watch the session later? Will there be provided recording? Yeah, there will be a recording, so no worries. Right, you will be provided with all the materials. All right. And finally, yeah, make sure that your learners proofread the answer. Yeah, again, advise them to leave these 2-3 minutes and still find some time to proofread to see if there are any typos, if that's computer delivered exam, or just erase, or maybe make some final like, you know, corrections and so on and so on. All right. Okay, well, and just here there are 2 tasks. And yeah, what I was planning to do here is that here we have the example of writing task 2. And that's, I mean, my idea was just to show briefly how we can teach our learners to analyze the task. So let's have a look at this. And first of all, guys, could you please type the general topic of this essay? So what topic is this essay related to? Okay. Okay, Natalia, you have an idea, money and safety, but is safety the, like, is it the general topic or one aspect? Cashless society. I would rather agree here with Maria that it's more about money. Yeah, maybe the future of the money. Yes, but that's generally about money. Good. That's our general topic. Now, so which aspects do we need to cover here? Okay, what is the view basically here in terms of money and the future of the money? Okay, future of finance makes sense here, all right? But yeah, can you identify the view that this task contains? Okay, Galina, be careful here to talk about the gap between young and older generation, because it may be implied, but that's not what the task is about. No, I'm afraid not. Society will become cashless. Yeah. All right. Okay, advantages, yes. And thank you, Maria. Yeah, the fact that society, cashless society will have certain benefits. And if we talk about benefits, which 2 aspects should be covered in the essay? Again, it's not so much about literacy, economic literacy. Right. Thank you, Tori. Yes. Right. Thank you, Yulia. That's about safety and convenience. So the global topic, let's say, that's money, the future of the money, and how it will be transformed. Then the view is that cashless society will have lots of benefits in terms of safety and convenience. And exactly. And what is the task? What should we do here? Again, Denise, that's not quite about advantages and disadvantages. That's about, right, thank you, Maria Tori. Yeah, exactly. That's about agreeing or disagreeing and expressing your opinion on this. But again, be careful that advantages and disadvantages, that's a bit different type of essay. We need to agree or disagree with this opinion. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, personal opinion on this change. Good. All righty. So thank you. That basically brings me to the end of my presentation. Just maybe I have 1-2 minutes to answer some quick questions concerning the writing section. There was just a brief overview of what we as teachers can do to make our learners' life easier and preparation more effective. All right. Thank you so much for your active participation, your answers, responses, questions. Great. Okay, good. Thank you.